I've listened carefully to what the Minister has said and to the other contributors to this discussion. And I have to say that I'm shocked and appalled that what has happened today, or what is happening here today, is a further abuse of Grace and the 46 others. We are completely ignoring the fact that there are reports within the HSE that clearly outline what happened to Grace. Now, in the beginning when this happened, and when the whistleblowers decided that they were going to explain the case, it turned up at the Public Accounts Committee under the guise of the money that was spent on the Resilience Report and the Conal Devine Report. That's how it began to seep out into the public domain. That is how it was exposed. It wasn't the HSE or anybody else facilitating an inspection of what went on or an investigation. And the minute all of this happened, the two whistleblowers were targeted by the HSE. They were targeted in their employment in Widda in Waterford, and they were put under horrendous stress. I read the reports from the whistleblowers. I discussed it with them, and I couldn't believe that this type of abuse could happen in our state. Abuse where a young woman was put into a home and was sexually abused. And that sexual abuse was reported by a HSE worker because he was concerned that she had objects put into her that would cause her a bowel problem for her future, and it did. It was reported to the Gardaí and nothing happened. They called to the house and inspected it, the HSE, and found that she lived there with 3 male residents. There was people found under the stairs, locked in. There was children out in outhouses. There was men of the road, as you were calling them at that time, calling and leaving that house. And nothing was done. And when the whistleblower went ahead against the wishes of the HSE and went to court to be appointed, ward of court, and for her to be appointed committee, the HSE resisted this, resisted it. But she ploughed ahead, and she was appointed. Now, the other really disgusting thing about this case is that it continues today through the Department of Health and Widda, because the whistleblower lost her job, because she went to TDs about the case. That is what she was told. And strong as she was, she took the case to the High Court, and they settled some sort of case, settled that case with some sort of, I'm sure, financial reward on the steps of the court. So we're never going to know what happened. And I'm asking you, Minister, how much did your department pay, or how much did Widda pay in legal fees and in settlements to keep Grace's whistleblowers quiet? Is it a fact? Is it a fact that she had to sign a confidentiality agreement? Will we ever know what was said? But we know enough in these reports to know that there was corruption, that there was criminality involved, and the guards or the state took no action whatsoever. And instead, when the committee of this person, Grace, decided that she was going to find out exactly what happened, she received reports like this, blanked out, all redacted. No sense can be made of some of the pages in it, except the commentary that Grace spent years in a daycare centre, attending daycare centre. She turned up, yes, she stripped off her clothes and presented lying on the floor in a sexual position. She was non-verbal. She was intellectual and physically challenged. And nobody reported it. Nobody thought fit to look at the bruises on her thighs, her legs, her breasts, all inflicted by hands of people, not, as it was said, by a fall on the bus. And nobody spoke up for her. Nobody tried to help her. And other children in that house were left at the end of the road to make their own way to school or elsewhere. No one asked where Grace was. It was said she has a cold, she's not well today, she won't be in. She hadn't seen the doctor for 6 years. And all during the time after the committee was appointed, the HSE continued to stonewall the efforts of the committee to get the information that was required, even on her medical information, so that that person, the committee responsible for Grace, would be able to take some form of care of her. And it didn't happen. And if you look through the redacted reports, lots of them from 2009 and before, you will see where incidents were reported to the Piltown Garda Station. I spent 2 hours in Pearse Street Garda Station making a protected disclosure, and nothing has ever happened. I haven't heard one single word from them. And this debate, like the dogs will bark but the caravans will move on, this debate will end. And I'm holding the Taoiseach and the government to account on this. I believe that the Dáil here should insist on accountability. The Taoiseach and the Minister should be sitting down there listening to what went on to Grace and responded to him, not hiding behind legal advice, not hiding behind, oh, somebody can't be named. Someone abused Grace sexually and others in that house. Somebody abused her financially because they took the disability allowance and paid nothing to her. When the committee got 2 boxes of her belongings back, there was clothes in it that couldn't be associated with Grace. They were too big for her. There was thongs in the box, not hers. There was other underwear and other clothes in the box that were not hers. Some of the clothes were filthy. There was no photographs. There was no birthday cards. There was no Christmas cards. There was nothing, only 2 boxes. And when the HSE were asked, do you want to see the 2 boxes and what I've just received, they declined. And in the investigation by the committee, this person that blew the whistle, they never replied to some of the queries that she put to them. They ignored her. And they said that it was a godsend that we have such places to send these children to. What a disgusting way to treat that young woman and all of the other 46. And when I stood over there in opposition and asked and insisted, Finian McGrath when he sat here, that what he presented was wrong, he was ignoring the 46 and other aspects of the case, Brendan Howlin, in fairness to him and others, stood up and demanded change. My party supported what was to be a lesser type of debate. Pretty typical, because they were wanting to protect the institutions and the agencies. Now, if we don't open up and demand transparency and accountability in relation to this, if the Minister is not detailed to come back into this House, full Minister and the Taoiseach, and to answer the questions that we have all put here today, then we should be ashamed of ourselves. We should understand that we are further abusing Grace and the other 46. And I'd like to know what is going to happen to the other 46. I would like to know what's going to happen then. Are we going to have more rosy reports put before us? I think it's horrendous, Count Corla, absolutely horrendous. And the money of the state was used by the HSE through solicitors to perpetuate the corruption that went on, the turning a blind eye to it. And it happened on the borders of Kilkenny and Waterford. And it's shocking to think that even the red flags from the UK authorities were ignored. Now, I could go on and on and on because I have it all here. Suffice to say that that whistleblower and the Public Accounts Committee, and in particular John Deasy, did an excellent job in uncovering what must be the greatest scandal of our times. And we're adding to that scandal and pain by what the Minister read out here today. And if we don't demand accountability, then what is this House for? How do you represent people? How do you ensure that this does not happen again? We had the Kilkenny incest case. We've had loads of examples from back then, and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. And when newer members to this House contribute to this debate, and I welcome it, they're missing the central point here, and that is the state knew about this all along. Officials knew about it. The social welfare, the people in the care of these people, they knew about it. They reported it. And they did the usual thing that the state would do. They employed people that were one time employed by the state, by the HSE, but were now in private practice to investigate. And the investigations were a complete and utter whitewash. Complete and utter whitewash. The detail of this report, it may be okay, it may look grand. It doesn't give any kind of description to the abuse that these 46 people suffered when they were in the care of the state. None. It is the first time in my 24 years here that listening to the two whistleblowers and reading the reports that it sickened me to the pit of my stomach. I can't believe it happened. And can I finish by saying this? When the officials came before the Public Accounts Committee, Count Corley, they told blatant lies about what they had done. And they should be called back in and they should be put through the ringer in relation to the misinformation that they gave this House. Politicians will be blamed for the wrongdoing, but there are individuals in the HSE that know what went on. They're criminals. They should be brought to court, they should be prosecuted, and we should not be afraid to chase them down.